Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith, and welcome to a very special edition of my view from the 40, from my kitchen. Now, let me tell you something. Do you remember earlier this year, Henry Burris came back, Ottawa lost, Ottawa media was going crazy, Team 1200 was like, oh, he's going to lose his job, people were like, bench him, fans in the crowd were ready to just say, let's just ship him out of town. And there was a certain guy who kept coming on and saying, nope, Henry Burris is the guy in Ottawa, and he shouldn't be benched. He needs to be shown a little bit more respect. That was this guy. And now, look where Ottawa is. For the second year in a row, they have clinched first place in the East. Not only that, but you have to feel somewhat confident going into the playoffs if you're a Red Blacks fan, knowing that the only quarterback who has beat teams with winning records this year is going to be leading Ottawa into the playoffs. So congratulations to Henry Burris and the Ottawa Red Blacks. Wish you all of the best in the playoffs. But let's take a moment and let's talk about the playoffs. Because this playoff season is going to be ridiculously crazy. When you think about other playoff years, you kind of had a good feeling on who was going to be getting to the big game. Not so much this year. Now, everybody on the West thinks it's a foregone conclusion that Calgary's going to be representing the West. I mean, why wouldn't they? They've lost one game all year. They look fantastic. My concern is that by the time Calgary takes the field towards the end of November in the Western Final, their starters will pretty much have had a month off. Coupled with the fact that Calgary was looking really good, but there are teams in the West, BC, that have beaten Calgary this year. I'm not necessarily convinced, and with all due respect to Calgary, I'm not necessarily convinced that it's going to be a cakewalk for them to go right to the Grey Cup. Now, on the East, oh, child, is the East crazy. Look at this. You've got Ottawa, of course, who's going to host the East Final. That's great. But who are they going to play? Hamilton is going to host either Winnipeg or Edmonton. Now, again, people might think it's a foregone conclusion the way the West has dominated this year. A Western team is going to roll into Hamilton and win. I love the crossover rule. I think it's fantastic. It opens up so many crazy possibilities. But let's also keep in mind that the crossover teams don't always do very well in the crossover game. So don't be surprised if Hamilton is coming to Ottawa on the 20th of November. But let's look at some other possibilities. You could have the Edmonton Eskimos coming to Ottawa in a Grey Cup rematch in the Eastern Final. You could have an Edmonton-Calgary Grey Cup, which sounds great because it's like the biggest rivalry, but the way that Edmonton's played against Calgary this year, probably not the most exciting game. Of course, you could have Ottawa-Calgary. And wouldn't that be something? The second year in a row, Ottawa goes to the Grey Cup, taking on the other big team from Alberta, a team that they tied earlier this year. You could have my dream, BC and Ottawa. I would definitely have to stock up on heart medication because, my nerves will be going crazy. There are so many different possibilities. How about this? How about Calgary and Hamilton? A couple years ago in BC, Brandon Banks' kick return was negated due to a penalty. You think he doesn't want that one back? So many crazy possibilities of what could happen in this playoff season, and I'm so excited about it. I love the fact that this weekend is coming, and there is pretty much one game, like one team that really isn't going to try this weekend when you think about it. Ottawa has nothing to play for. Winnipeg does. You got the big games. You got big games for Edmonton, big games for BC. There's a lot on the line in this final weekend, and I'm so excited for it. This is kind of like a pre-playoff weekend before we get to the playoffs. And I don't know if you've been paying attention on what's going on in BC, but let me tell you, this team is on fire right now. Yes, they had a little bit of a stumble with Winnipeg, and don't think they're having an easy time with Saskatchewan. Because if this Saskatchewan Roughriders were playing this way earlier this year, they'd probably be in the playoffs as well. So if you like the CFL, if you love the CFL, if you're even just casually interested, this is going to be one exciting weekend as we march down to Toronto in the Grey Cup. Let me know who you think is going to be the two final teams that make it to the Grey Cup. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I'm not convinced that Calgary is going to be representing the West. And I'm not really sure what's going to come out of the East. I'll tell you, if Ottawa keeps playing the way that they're playing, I don't care what team crosses over from the West or if it's Hamilton, Ottawa can go to the show. So let me know what you think. CFL_fan on Twitter, Facebook.com/WhittyWhittier and WhittyWhittier.com. Appreciate you taking the time to check this out. My name is Keith, and that's my view from the 40.